Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to GCPA Live. It is Tuesday evening, and tonight we have a reunion of the Violet cast. So we've got 6 of our cast members, half of the cast from Violet, who are here to talk about that storytelling, talk about that production. This was one of my absolute favorites that we have done. It's a show where the message is so important, but this cast really seemed to catch lightning in a bottle with the storytelling. So let's get to them. Let's bring them in here and find out who's with us here today. So first off, we have Olivia joining us tonight.
Hi.
Hi, Olivia. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Years ago. So remind us what roles was that you played in this production.
So in Violet, I played the hotel hooker. I was a member of the ensemble, and I was Violet's understudy.
All right, excellent. We've got a couple stories that we're going to hear about here.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here tonight, Olivia.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got Caleb.
Hi, y'all.
Hey, Caleb, how you doing tonight?
I am doing great.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks. So we're excited to have you here tonight. Remind everybody what roles it was that you played in Violet.
So I played the bus driver and the preacher.
And which one did you have more fun playing?
The preacher. It was so much fun.
And we're going to hear a couple of those stories here in a little bit. So we're going to dig into that. So thanks so much for being here tonight, Caleb. Next up, we have Ellie.
Hi.
Hey, Ellie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. So it's great to have you here tonight. Remind everybody what role it was that you played.
I played Young Vi.
Young Vi. So we've got a couple things that we're going to talk about here tonight about what that was like playing the younger version of the title character here. So we look forward to those stories. Thanks so much for being here, Ellie. Next up, we've got Thomas. You're muted.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm great. Thanks so much. So Thomas, remind us what role it was that you played in Violet.
I played Monty.
Monty. So one of the big 3, if you will, for the story here. And we've got all 3 of the big 3 here tonight, and we're going to get to share some stories about that. So Thomas, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got Zion.
Howdy, everybody.
Zion, how you doing, bud?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm great.
It's so great to have you here tonight. So good to see you again. Remind everybody what role it was that you played in.
I played Flick in the show musical Violet. Great time.
Yeah. So again, one of the big 3. And we know that we're going to get to talk a lot about that dynamic and those 3 characters and the three actors, yourself included, that told that story.
I'm excited.
It's a pivotal plot line with those 3 as you drive the show. So we're very happy to have you here tonight, Zion.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, we have Caroline.
Hi. Hey guys.
Hi. How are you?
I'm so good. So glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So remind everybody what role it was that you played in the show.
I played Violet. Yeah.
So that's not an easy feat. That's a pretty hefty role.
It was a little overwhelming, but it was really so exciting getting to dig into her.
Yeah. And so we're going to get an opportunity to dig in a little bit more about what that looked like for you and tell some stories from the show. So thanks so much for taking time with us here tonight.
Of course.
All right. So we're going to start with a round robin question where everybody's going to get an opportunity to share here. So Stephanie, if you would bring some people back up onto the screen for us here. So gang, this show is the smallest cast the GCPA has ever had. 12 members of the cast, really tight ensemble work for this show. So because it was a much smaller cast than we've ever had, the process felt a little bit different than it normally does for a cast that's even 20. So talk to us a little bit about the process in telling this particular story. So Olivia, let's start with you.
Well, Violet was the first small show that I've ever done. And so it was definitely a new experience. It was an exciting experience. I think I learned a lot from being in a small show, especially doing this small of a cast in a black box where the audience is right there and there's like 5 people on stage at a time. It's really, you feel a really personal connection with everybody in that room. And it was so exciting. And I like small casts are now my favorite because of this show.
Yeah.
and there you are.
Love it.
In the career. Zion, how about yourself?
Me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wasn't really aware of the small cast or just like the difference between small cast and large cast, until you were like, this is the smallest cast we've ever had. We've only got 12. And then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, that is pretty small. That is pretty small, especially for the vast amount of characters, right? But I think it was so beneficial to have a small cast for this show, just because, a large part of acting comes from the personal connections that you make with people. And there were only 12 of us. So we had every rehearsal, we had time to get to know each other. We had to. And so that personal connections and those relationships we made outside, of the show, really contributed to the relationships that we had between characters inside the show because we were comfortable around each other. Like everybody knew everyone. So it was great. I loved that. It was, a small little family we had on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you bring up there, Zion, I think is really important for whether it's a small cast or a big cast, is that relationship that you build with one another and the trust that you have.
Yeah.
And this cast, you could really see the trust that you all had in one another because that gave you a great freedom during rehearsals to play and try things new and have conversations about, hey, I want to try this. Let's see what happens. Let's have a discussion about what that is. And it created a freedom for you and everybody else in that cast. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Thomas, how about yourself?
I completely agree with everything that was just said. It was my first show with GCPA, and doing the show, having it be so small, I didn't really know how different it was from other shows with GCPA, really. And it was like now doing other shows, seeing that the difference between such a small cast and some of the larger casts, like in the main stage shows and stuff. It's really so incredible that the 12 of us got to know each other so well, and that we really were able to have the freedom to do things and to be able to try new things without having to worry about judgment or what other people might think. It was always no matter what I do, I know this is a safe space. I know everyone here is supporting me, and I know that everyone here is rooting for me, which was just something so special for me, especially at the time. I felt like I really needed that, and having that was something extremely special and something I hadn't really ever felt before in theater environment.
Yeah, well, and I remember very distinctly a conversation that you and I had early in the process, because I knew that you were really nervous coming into this show. And do you remember that conversation?
Oh yeah.
You remember what we talked about?
I mean, I remember it was a long conversation. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it was we saw something in you when we cast this show, and you need to believe that this is you're here for a reason. There's no reason to second guess yourself or any of that. And that was so special to me to have that conversation and really feel in this part specifically that was so different that I've got what it takes to do this well, and I don't have to bring anything in. Like I can draw on my own experiences and my like skills to do this well.
Yeah. And I saw something that I saw after having that conversation, not just from you, but everybody in the cast, was there was an element of relaxation in that, okay, we can do this. Mm-hmm. It was almost like we needed to give ourselves permission to know that we had the ability.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you did that, there was, and that was 1-2 rehearsals in, we were able to strip that away and just have fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So Caleb, how about yourself? What was this process like for you?
I mean, like kind of like what everyone else said, the bonds that we all made. Thanks. The bonds that we all made with each other. It was powerful, and I think it was so necessary to tell this story, because being comfortable with each other, it was key, because the story dealt with a lot of heavy subjects that's hard to talk about, hard to convey in a story successfully. And I think part of why I think we all did that successfully was because of how close we got throughout the rehearsal process, because there was only 12 of us. We were all on the same playing field, and we all rose to the occasion, and I think we put on a pretty great show.
I agree.
Oh, there he is, crazy preacher.
So I got to ask you, Caleb. Does Dad still ask you to pull out the preacher?
Oh, so yeah. So my dad's a pastor, so he really loved the fact that I was playing this role. And I remember telling him, Dad, he's like a crazy preacher. Like this guy in the show, he's like kind of insane. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. So my party trick was he would get me to do my preacher monologues from the show. And he's settled down on asking me to do that now. Thankfully, it's been a couple years. So, but right after we closed, let me tell you, there was a lot of times where he asked me to pull it out. Pull the preacher out
and send. Okay, so you will probably
stop. Don't do that. Don't scare me like that. Oh my
Ellie.
God.
Ellie, how about yourself? What was this process like for you? Ellie has a guest.
It's fun.
Caroline, while Ellie manages her.
Okay, we're good now.
We're good now. Okay.
It's fine. Oh my goodness.
Do they want to join the? I mean, they can join the live feed if they want. Just say hi.
You tell me to turn my light on. Can you see me now?
We can see you. And bring Cookie apparently.
What was the question? Oh yeah. Pretty much what everybody else said. I think that a story like this, it's really vital to have a real connection on stage. And because it was such a safe environment, and like there has to be trust there, and you have to be able to trust each other. And there was like a strong bond and a strong sense of trust with every single person. And it wasn't just, even if I wasn't on stage with, I think, like even if I didn't have any interaction with Olivia in the show, there was still trust there. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's so important, and especially in a story like this, which does deal with heavy topics. So like that sense of trust and caring was really important.
Yeah, and that's that was
incredible.
I will never forget what your mother told me one night. After that scene, she said it was so hard to watch you. She knew it was stage blood, but she said it was so hard to watch her in that moment, and that's a testament to the way that you approach that storytelling. Was because she saw her daughter, but she also saw young Vi in that moment. Well, thank you, Audrey. So and what you're talking about in that trust with the entire company, regardless of whether or not your characters had much interaction on stage, that trust of the entire ensemble really helped elevate everybody in the storytelling. So Caroline, you were a part of every single element of this process, because what was it? Violet leaves stage for all of about like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, I think I considered it my pee break of the show. So that was like probably 3.5 to 4 minutes. But I mean, that was pretty luxurious. That was pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, I just think that there's in a show with such a small cast, there is a great responsibility on everyone to be able to carry the whole show, because like there's not you just can never rely on the person next to you to be going full out and for you to be marking. I mean, that's just not, it should never be an option, but in a show with such a small size, you feel that responsibility even more. And so I think having that trust that we've all been talking about was essential to build that kind of like group responsibility.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear like the way that you put that, having a few people who are going full out and maybe a small handful of people that are marking that. Like you said, we should never encounter that in a production. But I think what was so unique about this cast was that nobody ever felt like they wanted to mark. Even when you were all exhausted at the end of a rehearsal, I could sit back and see in each one of your eyes, in your face, the way that you carried yourself. I'm exhausted, but you know what? I'm still going full out. And that just drove everybody that much more to bring their A game every day to rehearsal, because the story was that important.
100%.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk to Caleb and Olivia a little bit right now. So you played multiple characters in this story, and I mean you're hopping in and out throughout the entirety of the story, playing the hooker to part of the gospel choir, to the preacher, to the bus driver, and here you are adjusting your mirror. So talk to us about what that was like for you, hopping back and forth so much in the show and still being present in every moment that you were on stage to tell that story.
Olivia, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, well, I think that it's a challenge and it's a skill that the actors have to build up, because like, unlike Caroline, who was saying that she's literally on stage the whole time, for my track in the show, I would be on stage for 5 minutes and then I'd be off for 5 minutes and then I'd be back on, and I was running and changing costumes, and it was, a constant back and forth. And so when I was on stage, like right before I would go on, I'd make sure I was focused and like make sure I'd have my head in the game, because I was just running around backstage. And so it was definitely, I remember like the first run of Tech Week, it was overwhelming because I felt like I was hopping all over the place. And then eventually you get into the groove of it. And I also think that it was something that was so exciting for me, because I got to play so many different roles. And that was one of the best things about being in the ensemble for this show, is because there were so many different ensemble parts. And so I got to explore lots of different characters. And I did really, even if it was difficult at times, it was like certainly a rewarding experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Olivia, it was really hard. Especially, I was having a tough time because I had to go from this bus driver to this super elaborate, over the top type of character. So it was definitely challenging. And like Olivia said, it just took practice. I don't think any of us got it the first rehearsal. That was okay. But For me, what really helped me was actually when we got into tech and we got to run the show with costumes. That really helped me change perspectives, change character perspectives. You know, when I put on my bus driver coat for the top of the show, I was ready to do that role. And then as I changed into my preacher's clothes, I kind of transformed from the bus driver to the preacher. That sounds like super cheesy acty type stuff, but like it really works. Like the costume really helped me have a smoother transition from character to character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think that's cheesy at all.
Okay, good.
Because as actors, we will hang our hat on something that will help us with that transition and that focus. For some, it's a prop. For others, it's a physicality. For others, it's a costume. That just helps them put themselves in the moment that they're in, and to get that focus. That's not. I don't think that's outside.
Okay, good. Wait, I just realized something that I have to show you guys right on my desk stand. This is my bus driver. I don't know if you all can see it, but this is my bus driver little name tag that I had, and Lori said I could keep it, so I have it, and I just remembered it was right there. I feel like I had to show you guys. So.
Mr. Wallace Weatherman.
Yes, sing it, Paul, sing it.
I don't sing it nearly as well as Caroline did. And Olivia when she had her rehearsal.
Okay, great.
And Olivia, something that you mentioned in regards to what happened off stage for you, that you may have been on for 5 minutes and off for 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes wasn't downtime. You're running, getting into your next costume, taking that breath in order to focus, and I think that's something that some audience members don't recognize, is that even though an actor's not on stage, it doesn't mean that they're not hustling backstage in order to get ready for that next moment. And so that's a really great point to bring out about this particular ensemble track for anybody who was in the ensemble for this show, is that it was just as much of a marathon sprint for you, even though you weren't on stage, as much as Flick and Monty and Violet were.
Yeah, for sure. I remember like the 5 or 6 of us that had all these different parts, we would have our costumes like set on the different sides of the stage, and we'd all be helping each other with quick changes. And it's really like, it's a team effort because there were so many of us that were all doing the same marathon. So it was very supportive backstage, and everyone, if someone was running, we would get out of their way, let them go do their thing, or if they needed help with a quick change. Yeah, but the cast was really great about making those tracks work smoothly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another testament to the camaraderie that this cast had, was that no one felt like you weren't going to get the help that you needed. There were so many people that were ready to step up. And you need help with that quick change, I've got a couple extra seconds, let me help you. You need help moving this prop, I'm going that direction anyway. Let me go ahead and move that for you, which was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So let's go ahead now and talk with Ellie and Caroline, who played Violet and young Vi. And so one of the interesting things about this particular story is that we get to see flashbacks of Violet at a younger age, and so playing the same role at different ages. Tell us about what it is that you two did to work together in order to tell Violet's story so seamlessly.
I'll start. Well, I know that we pretty early on, with kind of Paul's guidance, he was like, I think it'll be important to kind of physicalize something that we both have in common in times of like crisis, the kind of like a physicalization of that we share, so that when you do it first, we see that, and then we see it continue in me older. So I think physicality was really important. And I think I would watch you a lot to see how you were behaving. And I just think, we ran it so many times, and it's such a small cast that we had a lot of opportunities to watch each other. And I just think for me, I connected the most like physically.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And I think that we met pretty early on, and we like discussed how important this part of the storytelling is. And so that was really beneficial. And yeah, the physicality shifts. And I think we talked about like what I do, like is planting a seed to everything else that happens in Violet's life. So there were like specific things that we would do, like specifically in Luck of the Draw, we would like the same card movements, or like whether it was like a breath, just little things like that overall made it, I can't think of a good word, but it like planting the seeds that would like later you would see in the show.
Yeah, and what was so cool to see when you were working, and Caroline, you mentioned observing Ellie while she was working. I would see Ellie observing you as well, in order to continue to figure out that cohesiveness. Was that because of that observation and that inherent understanding that physicality was going to be something that could really create the intense nuance that the story needed, was that you continue to find things and build upon them throughout the process, as opposed to making a choice early and okay, that's what it is. You continue to play, you continue to figure out what that looked like. And it was kind of a bonus for us too that you look very similar.
That was always fun, like seeing if people could guess like which side of the poster was who. That was always fun. Which is
my eyebrows.
As a matter of fact, before quarantine hit, I was in GCPA. I had my Violet T-shirt on, and Ellie, your dad, was sitting in the hallway, and he looked at me and he said, "I just realized that's my daughter's face on your shirt." I was like, "Yeah, that's half of your daughter's face."
That's so funny. Yeah.
So that just, again, one of those seamless things that the two of you had in common for the telling of this story. Thanks for talking about what that looked like, because not everybody thinks about the detail that goes in when you've got two actors playing the same character at a different age. That there's that type of work that goes in that's very detailed.
And certainly, like, I mean, just doing character work for me, like, I mean, those scenes were crucial. I mean, she's remembering them at certain times in the show for a reason. So understanding what those moments meant to her in her youth and how they still impact her now was like vital in feeling like I had a grip on like who she was.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, ladies. So let's bring out a couple of the boys here. Zion and Thomas, you played Flick and Monty, respectively. So Flick and Monty, you were friends. You're both part of the military. You're friends in the military, but you also have a very heavy competition with one another. So what was it like striking that balance between the friendship and the competition that these two characters had for one
another? I'll start. I looked at the friendship between Monty and Flick as, it was a friendship that had a touch of rivalry on it, but I've had friends, right, in my personal life, and we were on sports teams together, or we're going out for some type of competition, and there's always that little bit of edge between you two. I think competition is good because it keeps you engaged with the other person, and it's natural between friends to compete for everything. We're always competing for everything, for attention, for advantages, anything like that. So I was really able to just like draw from my personal relationships with my friends and just put it into into this, dynamic that we had.
Yeah, I didn't know Zion before this really well at all.
No. It was great. We didn't.
We didn't. And it was so interesting because the first rehearsal I wasn't called because I wasn't in on my way. But the second one, when we were blocking the scene right after, I remember talking with Zion when everything was happening because there were so many different things happening on stage at once. And we were just sitting back at the bar right up against the mirror. And we were just talking. And it was just so nice to talk with him because he's such a genuine guy, so awesome to be around. And he's got so many good ideas and his instincts are absolutely phenomenal. And I think like learning that really early on was something that was really great for me because it wasn't necessarily that I was competing with Zion, but it was like, oh, I've got to like be at his level. But every time that we're going back and forth, it's like, oh, I've got to work to be with Zion. Like I've got to be where Zion's at, which was so just exciting for me because it was almost like I was competing with myself, which I feel like I sort of like took into the scenes. And there were so many other great moments where we would just like say stupid stuff. And it was like, we had these great moments of like rivalry and competition, but then at the same time, there were so many good moments where we could just like poke fun at each other and like do all this stuff. Like in all the pieces, the entire time we would just like make up stuff that made absolutely no sense, but we were doing it and it worked with the story. But it was so goofy, but it still had that like competitiveness to it. We would like open the magazine and I'd be like, oh, look at her. And he's like, oh my God, you're dumb. Like, stop.
Like
Stop
we got
it right
into
now.
it. We actually fought or like got in each other's faces and then like cut it out, you two. And then we're back to, the goofy times that all three of us were sharing. All the pieces is really where a lot of it came out, actually. That was a really fun scene between the three of us that I really enjoyed. Yeah, but it was like iron sharpening iron, the whole time with me and with Thomas and I and Monty and Flick, the characters too, Thomas's instincts were sharpening mine, and mine sharpening his, and the competition between Monty and Flick, as one would try or get closer to, I guess to Violet, as they're both competing for her attention, the other would try harder and they would use different tactics, and so you saw that until it built and exploded in some really emotional scenes.
Yeah, and I remember working on all the pieces, and that was a challenging piece.
Yeah, there it is.
That was a challenging piece of the puzzle for me as a director because we have 3 chairs at the center of the stage and 3 actors and nothing else.
Yep.
And as a director, I'm thinking, holy cow, I can't let this stagnate. And what was so great about the way that the two of you and Caroline approached that scene was that you approached it from a place of fun. And you were having fun in the rehearsal and you were trying different things and you'd say something silly or off the wall and it would spark an idea from somebody in the room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of electricity in the room, I think it took us darn near 3 hours in rehearsal to really kind of settle on where we felt the storytelling was there. And even after that, it still shifted. Mm-hmm. But that was some of the best 3 hours spent because what came out in that rehearsal influenced so much of the rest of the relationship between Flick and Monty and Violet, and you all used things from that conversation and you used things from that rehearsal not only to continue to solidify your bond, as Beth had mentioned. That's where the bromance began, was the day 2 of rehearsal, but as telling these 3 characters' stories, that rehearsal influenced so much of what happened around it. And that was just a lot of fun to be a part of and watch. And we're going to get another moment in a little bit here to talk more about particularly some of the heavier parts of that relationship. But before we do, I don't know that it would even be a GCPA conversation if we didn't talk about understudies. So we need to bring Olivia back out here. So, and Olivia's already grinning ear to ear. So Olivia, you had an opportunity. You were Violet's understudy. You had an opportunity. You knew going in that there was a rehearsal that Caroline was not going to be at, and it happened to be a run. And so you knew going in that you were going to have a full run in this role. Talk to us. How were you feeling preparing for that? What was it like telling that story? And then the aftermath, the response that you got after that run? Tell us all about that experience.
Honestly, it's one of the most terrifying and exciting things that I've ever gone through. Like Violet is the biggest role in the show by far. I mean, she, like we said, literally on stage except for 3 minutes, right? So having to learn all of that material while never getting to run anything, because Caroline was always at rehearsal and always on time. And so I never got to run any other scenes. And so it was that part of it, having to learn the material was certainly a learning experience. I had to find new ways to memorize lines and new ways to like really get it into my body, because I feel like when I'm normally doing a role, it's easier to memorize because every rehearsal I'm getting to run these scenes over and over. But for this, I was writing down notes and doing everything in my book, and then I just had to pop up on stage and do the whole show at once. So yeah, so the rehearsal process was definitely hard. I also spent a lot of time in rehearsal watching and getting to watch Caroline and Zion and Thomas do these scenes and go through that process, and just getting to observe was so amazing because they're all such wonderful actors, and I feel like I learned so much from that too. And then I got to run the whole show, which was such a blessing because most understudies don't get to do that. Most understudies don't get a chance to run the whole thing. And so I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. And it is my favorite GCPA memory by far. The cast was so incredibly supportive of everything. Like Zion and Thomas would be telling me what chairs I needed to bring if I was forgetting to do something, or help me through everything. And I, that role too is just so hard. Again, like we've said, it's such a challenging role. And so it took a second for me to get into that. Like I felt like in the beginning of the show, when we started the run, I was still a little bit shaky, but then I got into the part, and I felt like everyone was also super supportive of like my version of Violet. Like I knew that I am not the same actress as Caroline, and so that some things were going to come off different, and everyone just was supportive of that and went with it. And I never felt judgment if I did something different or if I did something the same. And so, yeah, it was just, everyone was so supportive, and I'm forever grateful for that.
So do you remember the moment immediately after the final chord?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Well, I burst into tears because of excitement and just relief that I did it. And we all got in a big group hug, and people were crying and hugging each other. And it was, yeah, there it is. It was so special. And that was really the beauty of this cast. And we talked about the trust that we had and the support that we had for each other. And I think that it all really showed in that moment.
Yeah. Everyone was super proud of you. And we knew
because she killed it.
Right?
He was amazing. He was amazing.
You absolutely killed it. Caleb, go ahead, talk. Tell us about your experience being a part of that.
So I've known Olivia for a while. I love her. I was so excited for this day to see her shine. And I just remember I remember being on stage with her in that understudy run, and just kind of thinking in the back of my head, like, this girl's a pro. She is a pro. like she didn't mess up once. She got every cue, every line right, every lyric right, every note right. She sounded great. It was like she'd been doing it for months. It was insane. And I just remember after the show being so proud of her and happy for her, and that's my favorite memory from the show. And like, I wasn't even the one who did it. It was her. I just loved it so much.
Yeah, Zaya, go ahead.
I just remember this huge like erupt of like noise, and it was, you know, applause, and we were crying. We all ran up to hug her, and I just remember thinking, like, wow, because this, you know, Violet was the first time that I had been in a show with understudies. You know, because I was always in my school shows, but we never had understudies. And so when I realized, or when I heard that, you know, Olivia was actually going to be able to go on, I was like, how in the world is she managing her part, her multiple parts, you know, the blocking that she has to do, the like prop placement that she has to do on top of the lead role, right? Having to memorize both and be ready to go at any point in time. You know, I just remember, like, I was like, that is baffling. And I'm pretty sure she had more lines right than I did. And I was like, you know what? You can't, like, I'm trying to stage me right here. You know, she was better than, you know, more lines than I had. And it was a really special moment. And I realized, like, the hard work, you know, like, everybody does, you know, there's no, like, everyone does the same amount of work. And it's different work, and you know, you do different things, but it's the same amount of effort and same amount of time and same amount of energy and same amount of commitment that you have to put in to whatever role you put in. And she killed it, and it was so great to just see it all come to light, and it was great. I loved it. I remember that very fondly.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been there. That would defeat the purpose, but I just wish I could have been there.
I would have defeated the purpose.
Yeah, thank you for not being there, I
guess. Go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, I think Olivia mentioned this, but if there wasn't the amount of trust in that cast, I don't think that would have gone seamlessly without, like, didn't miss a beat. If there was not that, like you could feel it in the room that everyone was like happy for her and excited. And if that wasn't there, I don't know. That was so important to that day, the amount of trust that we had built up.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Thomas.
I remember a few days before, Olivia and Alex were running scenes in the Orange Room, and Olivia was like, I'm so scared. I was like, why are you scared? You're going to kill it. You're going to do great. Everything's going to be fine. And then she was like, no, I'm terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, whatever. You're going to be fine. And I always knew she was going to be fine, but it was so interesting because I feel like every scene that we did, as like the closer we got to the end, everyone was like, oh my gosh, like she's like exceeding the already high expectations. She's killing this. And I remember one of my like bigger breaks toward the end of the show, I was sitting and I was watching Look at Me, and Kira was right next to me, and we just looked at each other and we were both sobbing. And she was like, is she getting you too? I was like, yeah, she really is. And she's like, I'm just so proud of her. And I was like, me too. And then I had to go on again. And then we did the finale, and I will never forget when that last chord was hit and then that group hug happened. I don't think I've ever cried that much in a rehearsal process. And it was because, like Paul said, we were all so proud of you. It was so fun for me to be able to try new things and be able to like really like just take every single line and every single scene as it came with you, and to be able to try new things and see, oh my gosh, I did cry a lot during that. Very different crying. But it was such a like fun and exciting time. And like everyone was saying, the energy was just so incredible. And it was so high the entire time because we were all pouring our heart and souls into it. And we knew that you cared so much, and we wanted to make it the best show possible for you and for ourselves and for everyone. And it was such an incredible experience, and I'm just so grateful that I got to be there for it.
Yeah. So Ellie mentioned the energy in the room, and the energy in the room was really about what all of you have described. Is that that sense of, we know you're going to do that, and we want to be there as focused as you are. And right from the beginning, the energy in that room was electric. And in some cases, and there have been some cases where I've been on stage where an understudy has gone on and the energy was high and the energy was electric, but not in a positive way, because we weren't sure what the heck was going to go down. But the energy in that room was such positivity. And as we got closer, Thomas mentioned, as you got closer to the end and the energy seemed to continue to rise and rise and rise. And like, so he mentioned talking to, Lori's saying, move on.
No. Just say it out loud, dude.
As he was having those conversations at the end, even Stephanie and Lori and I were kind of looking at each other like, this is incredible. And the entire cast allowed the moment to settle at the end. You finished the job and then you celebrated. And that's just the sign, one more sign of professional work. So Olivia, you gave a masterclass in how to be an understudy. Right from the beginning, your observation to the execution that you had and the opportunity that you had to go on. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And we definitely can't talk about the story of Violet without sharing that part of that story. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk with Zion and Thomas and Caroline, the big three for this story. The final scene. Talk to us. The creation of that scene, the nuances that were there in that final scene. Tell us what you were thinking, some of the things that happened in the rehearsal process during that element. And there's so much to talk about. Where do we start, right?
I mean, I was really scared going into that because I knew that was probably going to be the most like intimate moment to perform on stage that I've ever had to do. And at that point, we rehearsed and set everything in order of the show. So I felt like I was there with her at the end. And I like emotionally, I was kind of dreading that the same way that I'm sure like in that actual situation, like Violet would be dreading, seeing, showing her new face for the first time, not dreading it, but just the anticipation of it. So I don't know. I mean, what do you guys have to say about it?
Okay. I just have to pull up a picture to remember. We're talking about nuances. I'll say this first. I remember when I first realized, that, as I salute Monty, like that's probably the last time I'd be seeing him. And I was like, yo, I remember reading in the room. I was like, that's morbid, right? That's just a morbid moment. And I was like, that's my opportunity to really drive it, because if it's like hurting me, I can make it, the audience feel it even more, right? So I was very excited about the opportunity to really create a very tense emotional moment, or tender, I'd rather say, emotional environment. But we want to talk about nuances. I remember I didn't see it a whole bunch of times, but there was one moment that I saw Caroline, right? Her back's turned to both of us, and she like does this over her scar, and it broke me down in tears when I first saw it. I was like, I remember literally going, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful, little touch. I was like, what? Like, wow. Like, I have so much intense emotion, right, in the scene. And, just imagine what, it's going to look like. And I remember feeling it. And, the fact that it was in a black box made it even great. We had this triangle stance, and it was just so quiet and dark. And I could only focus on the two people in front of me. And, that really set, kind of the tone of the room. And, it allowed me, the space to really just like emote, which is like the whole point. And I really appreciate at least like that, those conversations that we had, those, moments of dialogue when we were in that little triangle formation, just literally speaking to, each other. That was great. Oof. Oof.
Yeah, for me, it was so interesting because when we first started the process, I thought that like I knew everything there was to know about Monty. But as we went through sort of each scene, like Caroline said, in order of the show, it was so interesting. Sort of like with All to Pieces we were talking about earlier, how every single scene, it was like I discovered something new that I could take with me for the rest of the show. And specifically in that last scene, I leave right before it gets like super crazy intense between Flick and Violet. But I remember thinking when I was like at home just reviewing the lines the night before, I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to go off to war and he's probably going to die. And that was something where I was like, whoa, that changes everything. And then when we were in there blocking it and we did that salute and we did the very, not strict, but like, what is the word?
Solemn.
I can't remember. Yes, solemn. Goodbye. It was so interesting to me to think about the fact that Monty doesn't know that this is probably going to be the last time. He's like, oh, I'll be back, whatever. I'll be fine when I go off to war. I'll come back. And it was so interesting for me just to think like, I know this as an actor, but the character doesn't know it. And to walk off stage every night was really sad because I was like, oh, this is where it hurts. Like now I know, but he didn't know. And it was so interesting then to be able to watch Zion and Caroline in those last moments when we were in the rehearsals was so awesome. And they did such a great job of setting up the finale and setting the tone and really keeping everything moving, but letting everything still settle and having everyone really have enough time to like digest what's going on, which was so important for that. Yeah, I just felt blessed to be a part of that.
Aww, look at us.
So that is an oft-used picture at GCPA after that production. Of course, that was from the epilogue. But Thomas, you mentioned what Zion and Caroline did in those moments after Monty left, and things got really deep. Ellie, as young Vi, comes back in that moment, right? And she's young Vi is watching this happen. And Ellie, we talked about when young Vi starts singing again at the end. It's essentially her musical theme that we see throughout the entirety of the musical. Talk to us about that moment, what we went through in order to find that moment, in order to then elevate the work that was being done by these three on stage in the moments before.
Yeah, I think so. Even though the rehearsal that we did for that whole last scene, even though I was in it for all of 30 seconds, it was still so important to me that I was there for the full, I think, was it like 3 hours, maybe 2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that I got to see everything that they did and how they worked through that scene and all of that. Because so this was how I interpreted it. I don't know, but every time there's a memory triggered in Violet's mind, adult Violet, it's like that's the tune. The Mama Wise and Man Have Eyes, that symbolizes a memory triggered. And I think that what it meant to me in that last scene is that her younger self can rest easy because it's like she's found everything that she's been longing for her whole life. She's accepted and she accepts herself. So it's like the last time I sing that, it feels like a kind of like a celebration, and that her younger self is is like happy almost.
Mhm.
Not that her younger self is like dead, but just that she's happy. She's happy that Violet is happy. So yeah, and it was really, like I said, cool to be in that rehearsal, even though I wasn't in the scene, but especially closing night, just like I have to like stand there for like a good 3 minutes and just watch that happen. And it's, oh my God, I was standing there like trying not to cry the whole time. But like as soon as I ran off stage, my mic was definitely still on, and I was like, but yeah.
So Laura actually came several times. Like, and if I remember correctly, Laura's only planning on coming once, and she saw the show 3 times because she wanted to be a part of that storytelling. And Ellie, one of the things that, because you and I have had this conversation, when young Vi, when you particularly opened your mouth to sing that musical theme again, that's where I lost it. And primarily because of the way that you approached it vocally. When you listen to the cast recording, the cast recording, the young Vi took a different approach than you did, where she kind of kept the little bit of the harsh tone that musical theme had from early and throughout the story. You took a very relaxed tone. It was comforting. It almost turned into like a lullaby in the way that you presented that, and that. And like you said, that kind of helped young Vi find closure.
Yeah.
In recognizing that old Vi has also found closure.
Yeah.
And has found what she's been seeking.
Yeah. I think that throughout the show it's like a nursery rhyme kind of. And the tone, like something that I played with was like the tone of how she sings it kind of correlates to the memory that's triggered. And I think the one I sing at first, like in the very first scene, it's like a way to pass time. Like she's just singing. And then there's one right before she gets hit with the axe blade. And then there's the last one, which is like you said, it's like a lullaby.
Yeah. You all go ahead, Caroline.
Well, I think that's just, I mean, part of that I think is also like, obviously Ellie's like beautiful delivery of each of those, and her having the wisdom to like portray those different kind of like moods. But also just like Janine Tesori and Brian Crawley, just the way that it was structured for the entire show up until that point made that last moment just like so organic. Like there was no like, I need to act this emotionally. It just, because of what they wrote, it was really intuitive. I mean, everything after like Violet realizes that like she still has the scar, everything after that, at least for me, it just felt so natural. And part of that was due to, Zion being so incredible and so wonderful to work with. And Thomas setting it up with, because he's leaving, and it's like, how do I feel about that? I think there were so many factors that made that last moment just like the most rewarding. It was really organic and something I'll always strive for to feel on the stage.
Yeah. So and there's a great photo of the end, that epilogue, where we wanted to show all of the people who were a part of your journey to get ultimately to where you were in that acceptance of who you are who Violet is as an individual, and the fact that she can be loved for who she is, and she finds that love with Flick. I'm just going to leave that there. So gang, we've talked about a lot of little specific moments throughout, but what are some of your favorite memories or your favorite stories from this production? Go ahead, Zion.
I remember during the bar scene where we were just in the club dancing, and I remember Kira literally taking it like her high note 3 steps up or something without telling anybody, and we were just like all backstage. She's never hit that note before, and I don't know, it just elevated the whole energy of the cast for the rest of the show. That was one of my favorites. Definitely.
Yeah, and even when we were sitting in the audience, we're like, "Oh, all right,
yeah, okay,
cool.
See how it's going."
Do you know she could do that? I didn't know she could do that. That's pretty cool. How about you, Caleb?
Oh gosh. I'm just gonna share my favorite onstage moments. There's too many like offstage moments that I love. My favorite onstage moment was the at the end of the show when Violet kind of confronts the preacher. I loved doing that with Caroline, and then leaving, I would always watch her in the wings perform that. I forgot what the song was, but it was this one big, like, really good song, and I just remember like, every night just watching her and just like, I don't know, being proud. I mean, the whole cast. Like, I remember watching the whole cast doing that show and just thinking like, how did I get so lucky to get to perform with all of these incredibly talented people? Like, it was just insane.
Yeah, I remember a lot from that preacher scene as well, and what stood out to me about the way that you approached that every night was clearly there was physical contact that was a part of that scene. So you knew what was coming because we had to make sure that everyone was safe in that moment, but you never missed a beat in responding very honestly in the preacher not expecting it to come. And that in the moment honesty just continued to raise the stakes for Violet and really drive her to that next moment that ultimately ended up having her confront her father. Right. Without that moment, she's not able to confront her father. And that was something that stood out to me in the way that you approached that every single time we did that.
Oh, well, thanks, Paul. I appreciate that.
And
there we are.
The moment.
I love that picture.
So, Ellie, how about yourself? What's one of your favorite stories from the show?
Gosh, there's like so many just random like little things that happened throughout the entire process that was so fun. But one of my favorite memories is well, first of all, getting to stand backstage and listen to all of On My Way and then walk on stage for like all of 30 seconds, but just getting to hear the whole song and like standing behind the curtain, that was always fun. But one thing that I would do is between Down the Mountain, which was the scene where I got hit with the axe blade. So we used like sticky gel blood, which was great. And between that and I don't remember which scene it was. Oh, it was between that and Look at Me. I didn't have a ton of time. It wasn't like a quick change, but there wasn't time to like gently remove it. So I would like come off stage and then I would like hop out of Xander's arms and like sprint to the dressing room, and Molly would be like waiting with like a paper towel and she'd be like, and then I would I don't know, that was always funny to me that I would get off stage after this really emotional scene where I'm like in shock because my face is cut in half and then I like had to sprint through Chaminade.
And of course those are things that we would have never seen on stage.
No.
How about you, Caroline?
I think one of my favorite moments was when Thomas was doing Last Time I Came to Memphis, and the poor kid slipped. He was like moving around the bed. I can't remember exactly how he slipped and like didn't miss a beat. I I almost like guessed if it actually happened because it was he so quickly got back up on his feet and he maybe missed like a word. But I just a lot of people didn't even notice that it happened. And so for me, like it was almost like obviously at first I was like, oh God, you know, it's like a glitch in this well-oiled machine we had created. And so I was so hard not to start laughing out of like kind of the relief that it didn't turn into like huge chaos, and he just jumped right back up, and the whole song is supposed to be about him bragging about his, you know, escapades and stuff. So it was just so ironic that he just like slips in the middle of it, but he was a pro. So that was so fun.
Slip, jump right back up. Yeah, I got this. I will admit there was just a hint of panic in your eyes.
I was terrified. That was an experience.
It worked. It was comedic. It was like, oh, look at him. The irony. It made it all worth it.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was one of your favorite stories from the show?
Well, other than that one, probably there was one quick change I had in the entire show, and it was right after Lay Down Your Head. And I had a wife beater on, and I had no shoes on, but I slipped my shoes on while I was in the bed. And then I ran off, and Bella Leonard was helping me backstage. She was throwing everything I needed on me, buttoning things, tying up my huge boots. So she was tying one boot, and I was tying the other boot. And it was during, I think, the Saturday matinee. I was tying one shoe, she was tying the other one. I finished, and she just finished too. So I lift up my arms because I'm getting ready to run, and I accidentally hit her in the nose with my elbow. And I felt so bad. She goes, oh my God. And she fell backward, hit the door. And I was like, Bella, are you okay? She's like, get on stage. I was like, okay. So then I ran on stage, and the entire time, thank goodness I had one line, and then I walked off. So I walked off after that one line, and I was like, are you okay? She's like, I'm fine. I got over it. It's fine. And then I later found out that she went and she talked to her mom, and she told her mom, like, I have a really bad headache, but it's fine. And she didn't tell her mom what happened. And I was like, Bella, you should have told your mom that, like, I hit you. And like, that's why you're in pain. Like, I understand. She was like, no, my mom will get mad at me because she likes you more. And I was like, Bella, that is not an excuse. She told me that. And then I went up to her mom, and I was like, Mrs. Leonard, I hit your daughter, and I feel awful about it. And please make sure she's okay, because she keeps telling me she's fine, and she's not fine. And I will always remember that, because I felt so awful that entire day.
You can't hear it, but Lori is cackling in the background. She loved that story.
I'm glad. I'm glad someone can find some joy in it. Not at all.
And yes, we do not condone violence. We make sure to take care of our actors when accidents do happen and they get hurt.
Young Violet did get hit with an axe.
This is true. Violet did get hit with an axe. and I bet her father checks the shiv every time now before he used it.
Sure did.
Don't you think? Stephanie's super happy about getting that in. So Olivia, how about you?
I think that one of my favorite memories from the rehearsal process is every time that me and Maikisa and Kira got to sing the Anyone Would Do reprise. Just because that song was like, it was just this 1 minute little musical interlude that happened like during a scene change and while people were costume changing, but we just got to go on stage and belt our faces off every night and do all these fun riffs, because that was pretty much the whole point of the song. And it was just such a fun moment in the show. And like the three of us really got to play with the music and have so much fun with it in a show where there's so many moments that are so challenging and hard. Like in that moment, we just got to go on stage and sing. And the three of us had a lot of fun with that song. I think that's definitely one of my favorite memories. from this.
Well, and if I remember correctly, your castmates seem to love that as well.
Yeah, there is.
And as Lori says, you absolutely did get to wail on that song.
Yeah.
And other stories that I think I round robin. I got to everybody, right? Zion.
Can we talk about Broadway.com for a second? The Broadway.com vlog. Thomas, please. Please.
Was that the start of them? Was that the first one?
Yeah, okay. So that was this was the first time. This wasn't the first time I did a Broadway.com vlog, but it was the first time I did it for like a full week where I did it like all of tech and then shows. And it was, I mean, this was like the best cast to do it with just because of how well we all got along and how much my mom's cackling in the background.
And we were goofy backstage.
Oh, we were goofy.
We had
and
fun backstage.
We did our makeup together on it. It was like in Caroline's little like nook backstage. It was such a fun time. And it was like, I look back on them sometimes because I keep them all on my phone. And it's just, it was so fun to like be able to do that because it was like, we could just be ourselves in front of the camera, show other people how fun it was. And then looking back, it just makes such great memories to relive those great moments.
I think we did Instagram takeovers too. And it's like just having those like little random memories. I don't know if the highlight is still on the GCPA Instagram, but if it is, you should watch it because it's just like all these random things that like probably wouldn't make sense to anybody else, but just like being able to have those like little memories. Like sometimes I'll go back and watch. It is good. Oh, I'm gonna watch it tonight. It's just so fun just to look back and see the things that you wouldn't necessarily remember and just
we really created a lot of memories with this show, and this is our longest interview to date, about an hour and 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and wrap things up as we wrap up all of our live feeds. Share a little bit about why you think that people should come and take classes or audition for a show at GCPA. And Caroline, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think GCPA was one of the most important companies that I have been lucky enough to work with. Because, I mean, on one side of things, I think the training that I got was superb. I think it was professional quality. Because obviously you, Paul, and Stephanie, and Lori, and everyone at GCPA has so much real world experience that they know how to portray to kids, and they know how to like teach. They're amazing teachers. So that's the first thing, is the training is just going to be phenomenal. And secondly, of course, I just think theater is so much about community and about supporting your fellow artists. And I think that GCPA makes that such a priority. I think we were lucky in our cast of Violet that it came pretty naturally, but I just think that's a testament to the environment that you feel as soon as you step in to those doors. I mean, I felt the most comfortable I've ever felt, like performing in front of people, working with other people. I always felt like I could try new things, and if they didn't work, it's not really a big deal. And in fact, I'm really encouraged for trying new things, which is something that can be really, really scary, especially in like a high school setting. So for both the professional and like personal, just like wonderful experience that you have, absolutely 100%, you should audition for a show or take a class at least.
Cool. Thank you, Caroline. And there's that moment of you rubbing your fingers down your scar at the end of the show. Thanks so much, Caroline. I appreciate it. And I know that you've got to run, so thanks so much for spending time with us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I love you all.
Of course.
Bye.
So Ellie, how about yourself?
I mean, everything that Caroline mentioned, it's a professional environment, but a nurturing environment too. And friendships and safety and trust is like a priority there, along with the professional training that you receive. And it's like I said, it's like it was such a safe space, and never was I afraid to take a risk, and it was encouraged to take risks. And from having a safe environment where I could explore that character and myself as an actor really benefited me in other situations. And yeah, it's just so nurturing, but you're still being pushed and you're still being challenged, but you also feel loved. And I think that that's so important to me, because that's, I mean, like Caroline, I'm pretty much repeating what she said, but it's like that's what theater is about. It's about the people around you. And I think GCPA makes that absolutely a priority, that there is a connection and that there's trust.
Thank you. Caleb.
Oh boy. I mean, I've been doing shows here since like the 8th grade, which is wild. And I think the reason why I keep coming back is just because, you know, the creative team here at GCPA, they don't just see you as an actor, as a machine in their show. It's they approach you as like a human, and they get to know you on a personal level. And I mean, I know that through the ups and downs of my own personal life, you know, I've gone to them, and you know, they just accept me with open arms, and they forgive, and they there's a mutual amount of respect, and it's just, that's so uncommon, you know what I'm saying, to have a really great personal bond with your director, with your choreographer, with your music director. You know, it's so unique, and it's so cool. And you know, they've dealt with me at my worst, and you know, have like loved me at my best. And it's just like, it's just the best. It's seriously like you're a family, you know. And it's, on top of that, the training is incredible. I mean, for me, just having gotten done going through the college audition process, they prepared me for that in so many ways. And I got into some like really great schools that I wouldn't have been able to do if it weren't for the training that I've received here for the professional world. So I love GCPA.
There you are.
Oh my God! No! That was my first show. That was Sterling Modern Millie. Oh my God! I'm blushing now. Y'all got me blushing on the live.
Thank you, Caleb. Zion.
You're welcome.
All right. Man. Okay. So GCPA, the Violet was my first show with GCPA. And you know, I remember, you know, being a little bit intimidated because I just, you know, I didn't know what to expect at all. And I remember walking in, it was just the most comfortable, you know, once I really got into the groove of the rehearsal process. I remember being comfortable around everybody, around creating, you know. And I think GCPA, I know GCPA for a fact, they attract, you know, a certain type of dedicated and a certain type of talented person, right? And we're children, you know. A lot of us, you know, start really young, and you don't, when you're creating, you know, some really special moments, I didn't feel as if I was being talked down to or like talked at. I've been wanting to do this the whole time. I really want to like just to really like emphasize the amount of collaborative, you know, the collaboration that we did to make the scenes. Like a lot of the scenes that we did were the culmination of a lot of our ideas coming together and ideas feeding off of each other. And we bounced, you know, ideas off each other until we had something beautiful. I remember I struggled very heavily with, you know, Flick's solo song. And I was so, nervous about, the blocking and everything, because Paul was like, do whatever feels natural, and sat back, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, tell me what to do. And he was like, no. He was like, I want you to, do whatever, feels natural for you. And I just, I'd never been in that mindset before. I'd never been allotted that space or that, responsibility, that opportunity. And so I remember Caroline and Paul, helped me get through that process until I was able to actually start providing some ideas, until I opened my floodgate of creativity. Mm-hmm. And, we made something that I was really happy with, and I think everybody was really happy with. So, I feel like GCPA will respect you as, a creator, and then they'll want to get to know you as a person, Like, I get coffee with Paul. I can't say I would do that with other directors, or at least I haven't. It's more than just, business. It's like a safe space. It's great.
Yeah. Thank you, Zion.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that those floodgates opened up.
Yeah, it took a while, but we got them open.
Everybody's gates open at a different point, and when yours did, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make me cry.
Thomas.
So I very much agree with Zion on the collaboration. That was something that that really struck me right in the beginning. And I think it might have even been in that first conversation that we had, like the first or second rehearsal, about how theater is a collaborative art. It's not just me as the director telling you what to do. Like we're working together. We're creating this story together. And that was something that really stuck with me, and I've taken with me in other shows that I've done. It's okay to take risks, and it's okay to try new things and to see if this works. And if it doesn't, okay, try something else. It was never, if this doesn't work, then that's the end of it. We can't do it. It was like, it didn't work that way. Let's try it this way. And it was so fun for the first time in a while for me to just be able to experiment with different things and have conversations about the characters, because I feel like, especially in the summer shows, there's so much emphasis on really figuring out what is driving every character. And there's so much individualized attention given to every single person in the cast to really create a character for themselves and use what they have to make the best story possible with everyone else. And that community that everyone was talking about is at GCPA especially is so much of a family. It's so incredible to be able to go to anyone at any time with anything and to be able to get help or to just talk. And that's something, especially now, that's so nice. The friends that I have at GCPA are truly a family. And the fact that in this time where we're all not allowed to necessarily be together, we're still together. We like the stuff like this, the fact that GCPA cares enough to bring everyone together for this and to be able to communicate and see new things is just so incredible. And it's so awesome to be a part of. And I often say, like, oh, I wish I'd gone to GCPA earlier in my life. But one time Paul and I were talking and he was like, if you had, it wouldn't have gone the way that it did. And I think that's something that ever since he said that to me, that's really stuck with me too, because you find your family when you need to, and they're there for you when you need them. And that's exactly what GCPA has been for me. I've gone through so much in my personal life and my theater life and every life since starting at GCPA, and having classes on Wednesdays and having rehearsals on different days of the week has always been something that I've looked forward to and something I've always cherished. And it's just kind of sad now that I'm like, going to college next year, that I won't necessarily have all of that. But I know at the same time that I've got enrolling Wednesdays. I've got that family still. And if there's anything that I need in the future, I can always come back and I can always reach out. And that's so incredible.
Yep. Yep. That's for everybody. Everybody that's been a part of GCPA. You can go off and take that next step in your life, but you're always welcome back. There's always a home here for you. Olivia.
So I've been with GCPA for a long time. I think that Cabaret this summer is going to be my 7th show, which seems crazy because I feel like just yesterday I was in Elf, which was a junior production. But I truly believe that GCPA has the perfect balance of professionalism and good people and a good environment and a fun environment. You know, like every show that I have done, the directors take so much pride in the work that they put on stage, and they will treat you like you're a professional actor, and they expect you to know your lines when you come to rehearsal, and you have to work on your choreography, which is such good training, especially for like for me, because I want to go into this professionally. And so it was important to me to be at a theater company where I would be getting that structured training in order to prepare me for this professional life. But then also it's so much fun, and like we have so much fun in rehearsals, and the environment that the directors are able to create is just amazing. And I'm so grateful for every experience I've had at GCPA. I wouldn't be the person that I am today without it. I truly call GCPA my home. I know that a lot of us call GCPA home. And so if you haven't auditioned for a show at GCPA, please do. You will not regret it. It'll really change your life. Oh yeah, there's me and Elf. Yeah, I think that was right before 8th grade, so it was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yep, and Caleb was Buddy the Elf.
Yes, yeah.
One. And Stephanie, have you found one of those yet?
No. I hope she hasn't.
She says, "Give me 10 seconds."
Oh,
so
it's only matter of
Give me 10 seconds. Oh, I gotta go.
Oh, gang, thank you so much. It is so wonderful to see your faces and to be able to walk down memory lane and share some of the stories that we were able to create through Violet. Thomas, you mentioned that opportunity, even in these times where we're not able to literally be in the same room with one another. That's one thing that we, right from the beginning, when we had to close down because of COVID, we knew that we needed to continue to give that opportunity to our students, because that's clearly what you wanted. And many of you reached out to us and said, how can we stay connected? And so because of what you all have brought to this culture, there's only so much that Lori, Stephanie, Ashley, and myself can bring. That we can lay it out, but if you don't participate and you don't buy into that, the culture doesn't grow. And so it's really the culture is just as much a testament to all of you and the rest of our GCPA family as it is to the founders. So thank you for that. And I was able to stall long enough to find Buddy the Elf.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Name a brighter star. I'll wait.
Stop. Oh my God, no. The amount of times the amount of sweat from that show.
Hey, I feel you. I sweat a lot when I'm on stage too. It's a workout.
It's a workout.
It is a workout. So before we end, I do want to give a quick shout out to all of the people who have watched every single one of these live events live. Because we're seeing comments from many people who have been at every one of these, and thank you so much for taking your time, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching it on a replay on Facebook or YouTube. Thank you so much for taking time to hear our stories. We enjoy telling stories, which is why we exist. But we're real grateful to find out that you want to hear these stories as well. So to all of you who have been faithful watchers of our content, thank you so much. Continue to follow us because we've got a lot more coming. As a matter of fact, on Thursday, we're going to come back to you live with a reunion of the Annie Warbucks cast. So that'll be fun. Gang, Zion, Caleb, Thomas, Olivia, Ellie, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. an hour and a half talking about a show that was 2 hours long. We finish here with a cast and crew photo, as well as your artistic staff on that show. This is one that will forever live with us. So thank you so much for helping create and tell Violet's story. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.